They thought he was just a quiet farmer. Ethan Cole lived on a dusty pepper farm outside San Miguel, Texas, tending his crops, feeding chickens, and greeting his neighbors with a wry smile. On weekends, you'd find him at the diner drinking black coffee and cracking dry jokes with locals, who often noticed the strange visitors that sometimes stopped by his barn. Big men in black SUVs who'd disappear as quickly as they came. Nobody really asked questions, because Ethan didn't seem like the type you questioned. But underneath that quiet, homespun life, there was something off. Something in his eyes that didn't match the rest of him. A stillness that masked a storm. That stillness shattered on June 18th, 3:12 a.m., when Ethan Cole disappeared, along with nearly $6 million in cartel cash. And no one has seen him since. At 2:47 a.m., under the sticky heat of a Texas summer night, Ethan drove his battered John Deere tractor down a dirt road no one else dared travel after dark. The road led to a low-slung warehouse near the Rio Grande, a warehouse owned and operated by one of North America's most brutal drug cartels. Ethan had a key. He had the alarm codes. He even knew which safes were real and which were dummies. Over the next 11 minutes, Ethan Cole executed one of the most brazen robberies in Texas history. He loaded 6 steel boxes of cash into a van hidden in his barn, left identical decoys, filled with sand and expertly faked bills, behind, started a tire fire on his property to distract anyone watching the skies, and walked back into his kitchen, poured himself a coffee, and waited for the world to notice. What no one yet knew was that this heist had been 2 years in the making, and that Ethan was no ordinary farmer. The real story began 2 years earlier, when Ethan was fixing a broken fence near his abandoned grain silo. He heard 2 men speaking Spanish nearby, discussing how much money was coming through the old buildings. Millions, they said. That was the moment Ethan realized his dying farm wasn't sitting on worthless dirt. It was sitting on a gold mine. What those men didn't know was that Ethan Cole wasn't just a farmer. He was a disgraced CIA field operative, cashiered after a classified operation in Moscow went wrong in 2015. No one outside the agency knew the full story, only that his career ended in scandal, his security clearance revoked, and his only son, Ryan, cut him off out of shame. But the training never left him. And when he overheard that conversation, the operative in Ethan woke up. For the next 24 months, he quietly watched the cartel, learning their rotation schedules, mapping their cameras and safes, noticing where guards got lazy, which doors stayed unlocked a few seconds longer than they should, and most chilling of all, discovering evidence that he wasn't the first person to try this. In the weeds near the warehouse, he found a broken surveillance camera and a notebook. The notebook's last line, written in panicked handwriting, simply read, "They know I'm here." The notebook belonged to Marina Alvarez, a missing DEA agent who'd vanished 8 months earlier while investigating money laundering in the area. If a federal agent couldn't pull it off, what chance did he have? But Ethan kept digging, and what he uncovered next was worth more than any stack of bills. Inside the cartel's files, buried among their ledgers, were encrypted lists of names. Corrupt cops, double agents, judges, even FBI handlers. If those names leaked, it would topple their whole empire. Ethan had started planning for revenge. Revenge against the agency that destroyed him. Against the system that turned a blind eye to cartels buying politicians and police. Against the people who laughed when he fell. But when he saw the intelligence buried in those hard drives, names of people who'd sold out their own country, his mission changed. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about justice. It was about exposing the rot. On the night of the heist, everything went according to plan. His tech guy, Logan Reyes, thought he was just installing new cameras on the farm. In reality, he'd been quietly rerouting the cartel's feeds for months. His tractor and van were modified to avoid weight sensors and GPS tags. His neighbors were distracted by the tire fire, thinking he was burning trash. The boxes left in the vault passed quick inspection, but inside, they were filled with worthless counterfeits. By 3:15 a.m., Ethan was back home, sitting at his kitchen table. He watched smoke drift across the Texas horizon as cartel security realized what had happened. By dawn, black SUVs were combing the countryside. And by the next day, Ethan Cole was gone. The cartel moved fast. Their head of security, Carlos Menendez, ordered sweeps of every farm within 20 miles. They came to Ethan's property by 8:30 a.m., posing as insurance adjusters. But Ethan played his part. Disheveled, hungover, confused. He even served them coffee while showing them around. He'd planted his truck at a bar the night before, with a witness who swore he'd been drunk by 10 p.m. They left, but not before noticing fresh tire tracks. Ethan knew it was time to disappear for real. He activated his escape protocol, caches of supplies, false identities, and cash prepped months in advance. But the cartel had a head start, and their web extended deep into law enforcement. At a checkpoint outside El Paso, a corrupt deputy tried to stall him long enough for cartel hitmen to arrive. Ethan neutralized him in less than a minute and disappeared into the desert. Every road was a trap. Every gas station clerk, a potential informant. And still, he stayed 2 steps ahead. 2 days later, the cartel caught Logan Reyes trying to board a plane to Madrid. Under brutal interrogation, they discovered Logan wasn't just a freelancer. He was an undercover FBI agent. The cartel's worst fear was confirmed. The federal government knew far more than they'd suspected. But Logan bought himself a chance to warn Ethan, dropping a coded phrase over the phone that tipped him off it was a trap. Ethan didn't bite. Instead, he tipped off honest feds to the warehouse where Logan was held. A raid followed, freeing Logan and forcing the cartel to burn one of their own safe houses. By now, the cartel realized they weren't chasing a farmer. They were at war with a professional. Ethan knew he couldn't outrun them forever. But he didn't have to. Instead of running, he struck back by releasing the names and evidence he'd stolen. Over the next 2 months, anonymous packages landed on desks at newspapers, U.S. attorneys' offices, and honest FBI agents. Inside were files proving years of corruption, names, payments, even audio recordings of murders being covered up. The story exploded. Headlines screamed of scandal. Congressional hearings were called. Dirty agents and judges were arrested in droves. The cartel's grip on the border collapsed as their protectors fell one by one. Meanwhile, Ethan vanished deeper into the ether, converting cash to gold, jewels, and crypto. He crossed into Mexico through a back road, then into Central America, using skills honed over years in black ops to rebuild his identity. Ethan settled in a quiet coastal town under a new name. He bought a modest house, tended a garden, watched the ocean. The cartel never stopped looking, but the storm he'd unleashed kept them too busy to focus. Their U.S. operations were crippled, their network of corrupt officials in tatters. One day, months later, an encrypted message arrived on a burner phone. "Thanks. The files are destroying them." It was from Logan. Alive. Still fighting. Ethan never replied, but he kept the message, a reminder that even one man can change the game. 1 year later, Ethan sent a single message to his estranged son, Ryan. A photo of himself on a tropical beach holding a red pepper. The caption read, "Don't forget the farm. The honest plants still grow. You know where to find me. Just tell no one." Did Ryan ever come? No one knows. The land where Ethan once farmed was sold to developers. A shopping mall now standing where his barn once hid millions in cartel cash. But his story became legend among agents and criminals alike. A tale of how one quiet man took on a giant, and won. Some say he's still out there. Watching. Waiting. After all, you don't just eliminate someone like Ethan Cole. Not in 5 seconds. Not ever. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next story might just keep you awake tonight.